All right, we are live, so take it away.
Yeah, well, thanks first for meeting with us. We're here at DevMountain, and we just had a few of our students have some questions for you, somebody that's kind of in the JavaScript space, and thought you'd be a good person to talk to for some of our questions.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. So the first one we wanted to start out with was, why is JavaScript a good language to be kind of your first that you use to learn how to code?
Well, for me, JavaScript was not my first. I did a little bit with Java before, and so I think that made me appreciate how accessible JavaScript is, because Java is less accessible. It's harder to like install dependencies, and you have like this giant IDE that's really difficult to work with sometimes, and like you have to worry about class paths and all this crazy setup stuff that you don't really necessarily have to work with JavaScript. Although in recent months we're starting to lose some of that with all the like people saying, oh, you've got to use Babel and Webpack and all this other crazy stuff. So it's starting to get more complicated because we're building bigger and more difficult things. But the accessibility is still there. You just like open up your dev console in the browser and boom, like you've got, like you can start coding like var x equals, 3 + 2 and whatever. So I think it's super cool, a really accessible language. It's pretty forgiving. It's really fast. So like the feedback loop that you have is super fast. You don't have to like compile anything, until you start getting into Babel and stuff. And now you're transpiling stuff. But like when you're just getting started, it's just like having a really quick feedback loop is really, at least it's exciting to me. And then also like you have kind of the fun aspect of being able to manipulate a UI as well. And I think that to lots of people is really fun to be able to say, okay, like I have, the code and I can have like a console output, but that's not very exciting. What's really exciting is to be able to move something on the screen or respond to when somebody clicks on a button. And so you make something that's interactive. And I think that's really exciting for people too. And so JavaScript is great for beginners because it like allows you to learn really quickly. The syntax is really friendly, I think. Like there are a lot of different ways that you can do things, and whatever kind of fits the way that you think best. It's a dynamic language, so like you don't have to worry about like casting things to a number to an integer or a number to like a string or something. It just kind of works, and like after a while you have to start to learn the nuances of the language because there are a ton of nuances with JavaScript. But like when you're just getting started, the language kind of gets out of your way and you can learn how to program. And so those are just a couple ideas off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, that's great. Any of you guys have questions?
I have a question. Sorry. So I just started coding here at DevMountain, so I'm very much a newcomer. It's a lot of information for me. I do feel overwhelmed at times. So my question to you is, how do you determine if something is important? For instance, if something is soon to be outdated, do you have specific resources maybe that you go to keep up to date on these things?
Yeah. So the process of learning is like there are a couple steps to it, and it can be super overwhelming. Just to validate your feelings, I totally get overwhelmed often in this world of JavaScript because there's just so much going on. Like you can do music with JavaScript. You can like it's just the possibilities are endless. Like you can do robots. You can do you can build applications, all kinds of crazy things. And so, yeah, like it can totally be overwhelming, and you're not weird for feeling overwhelmed. And so the way that I kind of deal with that is I consume tons and tons of information, and just like really not like deep information, just really high level, shallow, quick, like, just little tidbits. And so the way that I do that is through newsletters. I subscribe to like 6 or 7 newsletters. And then podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. And I don't listen to every episode of every podcast, but like I have 15 podcasts or so that I subscribe to. And I just listen to them when I'm cleaning the house or anytime I drive or travel or something like that. And doing these things kind of gives you an introductory exposure to the different things that are possible. And then when you've identified stuff that you're interested in, oh yeah, and also like reading books and blog posts and stuff kind of depends on how you learn. So everybody learns differently. And so identify the way that you learn best and consume information in that way. And so once I've like identified something that I'm really interested in learning, then I like go deep on it and I find a really hardcore tutorial, or I find like lessons on front-end masters or egghead.io or something. Or like I'll ask somebody like, so the reason that I do these live like chat hangout on air things rather than just like a conversation with somebody is because I think the conversations we're having could maybe help other people. And so I will reach out to somebody like who's the author of the library or something and ask them questions about it. I did this with Dan Abramoff and Redux. And like he's a really nice guy and he might have been willing to have a conversation with me just one-on-one. But I think he was more excited about having a conversation with me in this kind of format where he knew that other people could benefit from our conversation. And so like I'll also reach out to the people who actually created the technology that I'm interested in learning about and ask them questions. So then the next step is you actually go out and build something. So come up with an app idea or some crazy finagled idea that will probably never amount to anything, and that's okay. And build something with that thing. So you've like taken this huge tons of information that you're gathering from all these different sources, and you've whittled it down to something that you're actually interested in. And then you whittle that down further once you've learned about these things into actually building something. And you make a ton of mistakes while you're building, and that's totally acceptable. Like that's just the way that it works. And in fact, like making mistakes is how you learn about these different things. And so once you've actually built it, then you have like all these learnings that you've come away with. And then to like cap it all off, the next best thing you can do, or like the next step to actually solidify your understanding of this technology is to teach it to other people. And so you give talks at meetups or at conferences or with your friends or like whatever. But teaching is like, Ashley G. Williams said that teaching is nature's way of helping us realize how poor our understanding is. And I really believe that's true. Because that's why I spend so much time preparing talks for meetups and conferences, is because I want to learn and I enjoy going to these events and meeting people and stuff. So anyway, that was probably a really long answer, but like just to reiterate again, like you're not alone. Pretty much everybody feels overwhelmed. You just have to like accept it that there's too much to do it all, and just like get a really basic idea of what is possible, and then zero in on the stuff that you're really interested in. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Thanks.
Who's next? All right, so pretty divisive issue in my experience so far, limited as it may be, is frameworks. Everybody seems to have their framework that they want to use. And in particular, two of the ones that I hear about the most right now are Angular and React. And I know Angular 2 is slated to be released very soon. And I was wondering what your opinion is on where the future of JavaScript might be going framework-wise, like if Angular 2 is going to be more standard or React.
Good question. Yeah, so there is definitely like a lot of chatter about different frameworks. And I think that it's really, really, really important for everybody to just learn the language. So focus as much of your effort on learning the language. And then learning frameworks is really valuable, but you need to know like why frameworks are valuable. And so like where frameworks come in really handy is when you need to actually build something. But if you don't understand the language very well, then you're going to not be very effective in building something that scales to bigger code base or a bigger team. And you're gonna like build something that is just not great. And so, yeah, focus your efforts on learning the language, because in 5 years, will Angular 2 be the new hotness? Probably not. React probably won't be like the amazing awesomeness that it is now. Maybe some like morphed version of these things will be what's still popular. But definitely what will be popular still is JavaScript, and the skills that you learn doing JavaScript will be really valuable. So yeah, like I think that arguing over frameworks is like it's difficult because we all like we're all different, and we have different, like our brains work differently, and these frameworks cater to different types of thinkers, in my opinion. And so like for me, React really works well for the way that I think and the way that I like to build applications. But for other people, Angular 2 might be like the best thing ever, and that's okay. We're different people, and we have different preferences on how we build applications, and other people really totally love Ember. And so yeah, there's like it's important to understand these different frameworks, because like it's really, if you decide, okay, I'm just going to go vanilla JS and not use a framework, what you're going to do is you're actually going to build a framework. And so you have to like be aware of that as well. And so if you need to build something and ship it, it's probably best to, like evaluate your options and what the implications of using frameworks is. Like, these frameworks are really big. So if you're building something for mobile that needs to be super fast, then maybe you might think about not building or not using a framework in that scenario, or using a smaller one. But like for the most part, if you're going to build something, you probably want to use a framework because they've covered a lot of different bases for you. But as you're learning, it's really, really critical that you focus a lot of effort on learning the language, and that will help you understand the framework a lot more. I feel like I had a final thought on that as well, but I'll, if I think of it, I'll bring it up again. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Switch.
Well, okay. I guess coming out of like a, fresh out of like a boot camp or something like that, what makes the person valuable or marketable to jobs? While like I would love to just stay in like code all day long, being unemployed isn't really appealing either.
So I think you kind of cut off on the last stuff that you said.
It was not important, the last part.
Just kind of like mumbling under your breath. Cool. Yeah. So what makes somebody marketable in like JavaScript development? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Cool. So just to give a little bit of background, I started doing JavaScript right before, or let's see, I got an internship with Domo in 2011, at the very tail end of 2011, and I started doing JavaScript for them a couple months later. So I haven't been doing JavaScript for very long, and full time I just graduated from college less than 2 years ago, or just about 2 years ago now. And so I haven't been doing this for very long. And one of the things that I love about this industry is that it moves so fast that a newbie can jump in and just like, catch the current. And as long as you stay up to date and like interested in the new things, then like you can find your, like maneuver your way really, really quickly, because like things are moving so fast. And so staying current is really important. Yeah, and then as far as like being marketable and stuff, I've found a great deal of value by being involved in the community. So like I'm really, really involved in open source. I started a podcast to give back to the community called JavaScript Air, and it's awesome. You should listen to it. And I blog, and one thing that made a huge difference in my career was getting involved in Egghead.io. So because like that learning process that I described to you, like the final, like the pinnacle of learning is teaching. So because of that, I learned something really valuable about how to do authentication with Angular. And so I gave a like presentation at a meetup in the area, and John Lindquist saw the recording of that. And that's another thing, actually, like anything that you do in this learning process, it's really good to have like some sort of learning artifact at the end of it to be able to give that to the community, because like, I mean, you're doing all the work anyway, you may as well, record your presentation or whatever, and then just put it out there. It might be helpful to somebody. And so John Lindquist saw the recording of my presentation, and he said, hey, like, that'd be super sweet if you made an egghead series out of this. And like that made a huge impact on my career, because I was able to, start making these lessons, and made a big impact in the community. And tons of my lessons are free on Egghead. And so I'm giving back to the community in that way. So yeah, giving back to the community is has made a really big impact on my career. Attending conferences and meetups has been really helpful. Like doing that networking. I don't really like the term networking because it sounds like you have an ulterior motive, but like meeting new people is probably better. And yeah, just getting to know different people and their backgrounds, and like we have a diverse like industry, and we need to learn about others and appreciate like where they're coming from. And so, yeah, participating in all that is also really important. And I feel like there was yet another thing that is slipping away. So if I think about it, I'll let you know. But yeah, those things are really important. Oh yeah, so on conferences, they are expensive, and I can't afford to go to all the ones that I want to. And so when I realized that conferences were hundreds of dollars, if not more, and like lots of times you have to fly and stay at a hotel, and like, conferences can add up to a couple $1,000s for some. And so to get around that issue, most conferences do, and they should pay for speakers. And so I realized, hey, if I speak at the conferences, then I will get in for free. And that was totally my motivation when I started speaking at conferences. And so like I submit like 5 or 7 proposals to each conference that I want to speak at, or I want to go to. And if I get selected, then they'll, fly me out there, keep me in a hotel, and all the, like, everything. So yeah, speaking is like just a really great way to sneak your way into conferences for free. And I do that all the time, and it's awesome.
That's awesome. Great.
So my question is, I'm curious what your opinion is regarding the future of JavaScript. Like, we see a lot of really cool things that have been cropping up all over the place, and curious how they're all coming together, and where do you think all this is going?
Yeah, good question. So Kyle Simpson, also known as Getify, one time, like he was asked a similar question on JavaScript Era, and he like it was referenced the saying like, anything that can be built in JavaScript will be built in JavaScript. I can't even remember who said that, but it's like some famous person. So like believe it, I guess. But Kyle was like, yeah, you could put JavaScript in a pacemaker, but I'm not putting that thing in me. Like, so JavaScript definitely has its place and has its places where it shouldn't be. But like, because JavaScript is just so accessible, and there's been so much investment on making the VMs fast for JavaScript, like it's becoming a really ubiquitous language. You can like do robots with it, and you can do applications in the browser. You can do server stuff. And I work at PayPal, and we do a lot of server stuff with JavaScript on Node. And so like the future of JavaScript, I think even with WebAssembly, we're still going to be doing a lot of JavaScript. And if you're not familiar with WebAssembly, here's another thing to overwhelm you a little bit. So this is like bytecode for the web. And so you can write a a C program, or you could write a Python program and compile it down to this thing called WebAssembly, and then send that to the browser, and the browser will run that. And so there are a lot of benefits to doing that, doing this WebAssembly thing. And for some people, one of the benefits is they don't have to write JavaScript. But that's not a benefit for me because I love JavaScript. And so, like, even with WebAssembly, I really don't expect that WebAssembly is going to be used to actually build full-on UIs. I think JavaScript will always be used to build UIs for the web, and I think it will continue to be used for building UIs. And if we have like some really hardcore processing things that we have to do or something, then we can call down into a WebAssembly program to do those things. But like even still, I think JavaScript has a really bright future for the web. I feel like it's going to be like continue to take the mobile space even more than it already is. Yeah, like learning JavaScript, you can bet on JavaScript being around for a long time, and I don't think there's any getting around that for a long time, and I'm glad about that because I really like JavaScript, the language. However, at the same time, I like to keep my eyes open because you really never know what kind of disruption could hit the web. And so like looking into things that compile to JavaScript and like Elm, for example, it's like something that's really interesting. But ultimately, it's all still going back to JavaScript. And so like you kind of have to balance the things that you're learning. I like to focus on JavaScript and just keep my eyes open because you never know what the next big thing is going to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have for you today.
Yeah, sure thing. I hope it was helpful. Feel free to reach out to me again on Twitter or something. I'm at Kent C. Dodds. So.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.